tour Kentucky's historic Woodford Reserve Distillery. The first Kentucky Derby was held in 1875, at a time when the Pepper clan was already in its third generation of whiskey production at the current site of the Woodford Reserve Distillery. The former has gone on to become one of the world's preeminent sporting events, while the latter was eventually named a National Historic Landmark. Now, these two Kentucky institutions are tightly intertwined, with Woodford Reserve becoming the presenting sponsor for the 2018 Kentucky Derby, the 144th annual edition. Forever now, the Woodford Reserve name is historically linked to this event, because beginning with this Derby, it will be the Kentucky Derby presented by Woodford Reserve, says Chris Morris, Woodford Reserve's master distiller. Now Derby lore and legend will be intrinsically linked to Woodford Reserve, and I think that's so cool. That's what it's all about. Set among the serene, rolling green hills of Versailles, with stud farms and stables as neighbors, both thoroughbred horses and bourbon whiskey thrive, thanks in part to Kentucky's famed limestone water. The Woodford Reserve Distillery is one of country's most pristine and beautiful. The distillery's national landmark status was bestowed not only for its lengthy history, but more specifically, for the work Dr. James Crowe and Oscar Pepper performed on site to improve bourbon production, and for the fact that it's essentially a surviving, operational factory from 1812. We are a very rare example of a 19th century factory. A distillery is a factory, it's making something, still making what it did back in the 19th century. Morris says. More, inside America's oldest distillery, the distillery does more than just look back, though. It's looking ahead, and one person leading that forward-thinking charge is Woodford Reserve's newly named assistant master distiller, Elizabeth McCall. She's a self-professed devotee of the unsexy side of the distillery industry, with a focus on areas including quality control and procedures. She's worked with the distillery for nearly a decade, namely in the sensory and R&D departments, eventually serving as master taster on her way to the current role. And then the other area is innovation and development, McCall says. How do we carry this brand on? I'm working with Chris Morris on that, and he's trying to teach me his ways on how he integrates flavor and history into the development of our brand and carrying it into the future. One such new product is the batch-proof edition of Woodford Reserve as part of this season's Masters collection, bottled at 125.8 proof. We love cask strength, we love barrel strength, and Woodford Reserve has always been a batch product, McCall says, noting that a batch could be between 120 and 140 barrels. So we're celebrating it with a batch proof, which is what we are when we dump our barrels. New booze. 2017 Whiskey and Spirits releases. There's plenty more where that came from. We also have coming out a Woodford Reserve Kentucky Straight Malt Whiskey, McCall says. The malt whiskey will feature a uniquely balanced mash bill of 51% malted barley, 47% corn and 2% dry. All three grains, from our bourbon, represented, but in different ratios, McCall says. So it'll be the same process in barrels, matured for the same amount of time, same proof point, the only thing that's changing is the grain recipe. A trip to the Woodford Reserve Distillery offers whiskey aficionados a chance to try these new products, while taking in the pristine views, the distillery's famous triple pot still operation and the old stone warehouses. A perfect mix of history and modernity, just as Morris and McCall want it. View the photo gallery above for an inside look at the Woodford Reserve Distillery, and select from one of several tour and tasting packages, ranging in price from $15 to $30 per person, at woodfordreserve.com. Tours are offered daily from March through December, Monday to Saturday in January and February, and reservations are encouraged. Derby drink, everything you should know about the mint julep.